Hello, everybody. It's me, the Boss Hog, or should I say, it's me, the Spartan, having recently completed the Spartan race over the weekend. I wanted to take this video just to talk about it, how I'm feeling, what my times were, my approach, and what I'm going to be doing next. Let's do it. All right, so this is taken from a booklet I got through from the organizers of the Spartan. It's actually quite well organized, I would say. I think it's a pretty big company at this point. There's definitely a lot of infrastructure, both on the day and sort of the supporting and everything else. So it definitely felt like quite a well organized event, I would say. The one or two things on the portal were a little bit unclear for me, but actually when I got there, it turned out I'd done everything right. And yeah, it was no issues at all. I got in quite quickly. Having a look at this before I ran, I was most nervous, honestly, about the three to fourth leg. I didn't really feel like my cardio slash running was where I wanted to be. And if you sort of look at the elevation as well, you can sort of see that that's very much uphill. And then it's sort of downhill in the second half. So that was my main concern, I think, going into it. I was probably feeling broadly okay about the rest, but actually, the first time I saw this map, like the obstacles were nowhere near as evenly spread out as I was maybe expecting. Don't know if this is common or uncommon, but just my immediate observations. Also, though, I have to say, so I went with a friend who is much fitter than me and has a lot more of the sort of setup, the watches and stuff like that than I do. And so he measured all this stuff, and he had 5.68K, and he did one penalty, which you have to do if you can't do one of the obstacles. They're typically sort of a 200-meter walk, or maybe you have to carry something or do some burpees or something like that. So even if you assume the fact that he had a 200-meter walk, it was much further than the 5K. Also, as well, in terms of the elevation, which his numbers did include total elevation. This looks a little bit higher than you would see looking at the profile there. So that was just, I guess, something to think about. I would say that like my expectations before were that I would be okay in this, but I found it much harder than I was expecting. It's been a long time since I did anything approaching an obstacle course, honestly, since I was at military school, really. And I'm significantly older and less fit compared to that. And I sort of knew I was in a bit of trouble when I turned up on the day. And, they were releasing people in 15-minute increments, so they would call you into your time slot, you'd be put in this paddock, and then you would go off in your time slot. And when I got into the paddock, I was like looking around, and honestly, if I wasn't in the bottom 10% of like physical fitness, I was the one level above it. I was definitely noticing quite immediately that I was below the average in terms of physical fitness, and not just below, quite substantially below. There were a couple of like social groups that were doing it as well, I would say, but even they were in pretty solid shape, probably slightly fitter than me. And they also had the advantage of doing things as groups, so I would see them sort of boosting each other up over walls and things like that as well. So a different approach. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it, and pros and cons actually if you're sort of going around more socially. I definitely had a singular approach here. I did almost everything by myself, although I did have help on one obstacle that we'll touch on in just a second, just actually getting up. And I didn't complete four obstacles out of the 20, so I had to do various punishments as a result of that. But honestly, I actually completed more of the obstacles than I was expecting. I was joking to my wife that I should just learn to, run a bit more because I'll probably be failing half of them. So I was pretty pleased actually. I only failed four out of the 21 obstacles. But yeah, still overall, I would say it was much harder than I was expecting. In terms of the obstacles, I'm actually going to start with obstacle 5 to 8, which by all accounts were really tough. Everyone was talking about it both during the race, like on obstacle 10 and 11, people were sort of hiking, for want of a better word. We'll touch on that in a second. So people were talking to each other, but also after the race as well, 5 to 8 were brutal. The thing is as well, like obstacle 5 was an incredibly cold water 20-meter swim where you also had to go under the water to get underneath like a wall. And up until that point, like I'd been running up a hill. Honestly, I was like in the middle of the pack. I was feeling quite good about my run, honestly. Like I timed it well. I felt pretty good. I'd actually been doing a bit of training when I was over in Poland. My wife's family lives basically next to a forest. So I even had a bit of experience kind of with forest uphill running. And I think that I held up really well. Like I would say I was probably in the second quartile, 40 to 50% of my group, and feeling pretty good. When I got to the top of the hill, yeah, I was tired, but and I was warm and everything else. But then my body went into like a mild shock. As soon as I went into the water, it was way deeper than I was expecting. Like it was above my head, and it was just an immediate reaction. Like I just felt the temperature difference. I was like, I froze up. Like I sort of just seized up. and I had to actually like swim to the side of the scaffolding to just to sort of regain my composure, I suppose. And there were like two of the people from Spartan there, like one of the people like taking pictures of me, so that was great. And the other one was like, "Are you okay?" Just calm and everything else. I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just like regaining my composure." So that was quite tough at the top of that. And then obstacle six was this incredibly heavy, or at least to me, 45 kilogram rock carry. It's only 10 meters there and back, so 20 meters total. But again, I saw a bunch of people failing this, and I found it very tough considering I'd been sort of practicing farmer carries, 20 on each arm. So I thought like 45 in the middle, that was an appropriate practice. But I think like you were wet and it was cold, it was a bit muddy as well after the exit from obstacle five, and it was really tough. Like I would say I saw a good 20, maybe more percentage of people fail and have to do sort of a log carry punishment. Yeah, it was tough. Definitely a hard one there. And then we had this sort of like climb, and this was the one area where I did get help actually. So it was like a 6 foot ledge that was really hard to get on top of. Like there was no like scaffolding or wall or anything that you could get on top of. And then on top of that 6 foot, there was another 12 foot of rope that you then had to climb over and back down. And I just couldn't get onto the second level without basically getting pulled up. I tried everything I could. My friend as well also had to get some help here, but he sort of managed to, he's a climber. So he was able to sort of use the scaffolding and sort of angle himself and mostly get up there by himself. It was really difficult to sort of understand what the approach was on this because it was just a flat surface at 6 foot height, and then it was like also like 2 foot long. So it wasn't even anything like you could grip it like a wall or something like that. So it was just a very hard obstacle to understand. The women's version as well was still like 5 foot tall and looked equally tough if you weren't sort of super tall. And I'm by the way, I'm almost 6 foot. I'm 179 centimeters, so slightly taller than average, although not super tall. So yeah, so I just couldn't work out how to actually get up there, and there was like somebody like helping and everything else. That was the one element where I did actually get a boost from that perspective. And then obstacle eight was my first failure, which was a monkey bars. And I literally, it was also my friend's only failure as well. So he overtook me on the punishment loop of this. And the problem was is you're just so wet and cold, and the monkey bars were quite far apart. So I literally I stepped up to do the monkey bars. I'm like, I'm probably going to struggle anyway. Like I wasn't sure if I could do it. And then as I sort of looked at it, it was so far away, and I was just like, my arms are still literally shaking from the rock carry. I'm still sort of feeling a bit cold. And I just decided that actually that was going to kill me if I actually did that. So and the guy standing next to it, the guy from the Spartan race, was like, "Do you not want to try?" I'm like, "Mate, I'm like, look at my hands, they're like shaking. My whole forearms was just on fire." So I just took the carry. And yes, I did a log carry, but honestly, log carries were, I would say, quite easy. And if I was going to be critical of this race, I think the punishments were a bit soft. I was sort of expecting harder runs, more burpees, heavier weights. Like the log carry was maybe 12 kilograms, and it was a very like smooth, easy to carry log. Like any moderately fit man and probably woman as well, he's not going to struggle with like a 12 kilogram log that was maybe like a meter long. It wasn't even particularly awkward. So I think like some of the punishments could have been a bit harsher if I'm being honest. The race is simple stuff, but the punishments weren't as tough. And again, maybe that was a deliberate choice from them. But that sort of really was a bit of a wake up call, honestly, because up until that point, the first sort of four obstacles were basically walls, and I'm okay with walls, especially the 5 foot walls. I can kind of brute force a 5 foot wall. I would say wall four which was a 6 foot wall without any help at all, was tough. And I had to actually ask the lady, I was like, what's the approach here? Like, because I hadn't done any training of climbing over walls. I don't know how I would do that short of climbing over walls. And she's like, so she explained to me, you put your hands on top, you put your leg halfway up, and then you throw yourself over. Took me 4 attempts to do it. I told myself I'm gonna try it 5 times and then I'll ask somebody for a boost, right? But I did it on the fourth time and I felt pretty good about it. The only thing I would say is like my legs today and actually my abs as well are both quite bruised, cuts, etc. Like it was almost impossible to go through this course without getting some grazes. So yeah, that was kind of fun. But I was really pleased with myself for this. And again, up until obstacle four, I was actually feeling really good, especially when I got over the wall. I was like, yes, right, this is going great. Like I'm probably ahead of where I expected to be. Training's come good. And then yeah, just obstacle 5 to 8 was so tough. The blue line, the blue circle there is like a water break, so nobody took bottled waters or like things like earphones or music because you were going underwater, you were going through mud. It just wouldn't, it's not really appropriate, or something you can do. Which again was a little bit different for me. I knew it was coming because I, read up and so, but I trained with music, and so it's a little bit different. But again, I think I navigated that quite well. I didn't really miss the music. And especially I would say after obstacle 8, like I was kind of in zombie mode, right? Like I was really focused, and just kind of getting through it. So yeah, I didn't really miss the music in any way, but just worth calling that out. So the water station was a thing. I had 2 cups of water and also a chocolate bar when I was there. Probably stopped for about a minute, maybe marginally longer. Well, part of me wonders if I should have stayed for a little bit longer just to get a bit more water. But honestly, I didn't really feel like my energy levels were too bad during the race. So maybe actually I timed it about right. Obstacle 9 was then tricky. It was harder than I was expecting. So, like, again, I went to a military school, so I'm kind of used to doing barbed wire crawls. But this one was tough. Like, not only was it very low, but the ground itself had actually got quite hard in the sun, and there were like little stones everywhere. So, again, people were getting quite badly cut up during this. And my approach was to go through on my back, which I then got told off from the Spartan guy because it was like dangerous because I had, barbed wire above my eyeballs. But I was like, well, this is otherwise I'm gonna like cut up my knees, cut up my guy parts. I was like, I'm doing this as best as I can. So yeah, so that was my approach there. But that was harder than I was expecting. Like I thought I'd kind of ace that, and I imagine kind of if it's the ground's a bit softer and there's less stones, it probably is okay. But again, harder than I was expecting. Also, as well, my friend actually lost a lot of time there. He destroyed me overall on the race, but he lost a ton of time. Like it took him a long time to get through there. So even though he overtook me on the punishment, I then caught back up to him and overtook him, although he again destroyed me after that. Obstacle 10 though was the first kind of part where I wish I'd trained a little bit differently, to be honest. So this was a sandbag carry, and I hadn't really done any proper carries in the gym. My gym does have sort of the bags that probably would have been a good analog for doing this, but this was tough. Like it was up a hill, 25 kilogram bag for the men, and I think it was 15 for the women. But it was really like very steep uphill, so you can kind of see it on the map here at 2.5K. Pretty sure that's what you're looking at. And Yeah, it was just very steep. You were looking at sort of no 50-degree incline, super steep. It was actually the first time I had a rest during the race. So I got to the top of the incline. Many people, I don't know, 10% of the people that were doing this were having a break at that point. And yeah, so I just sat down or sort of squatted down, I suppose, just to sort of get my balance. The sandbag was kind of okay, although it was like weirdly wet and cold. But once you positioned it well across the shoulders, it sort of sat there quite nicely. And that was okay. I would also say as well, the ground was very uneven. So not only was it steep, it was super uneven. Like I did see a few people take some nasty falls. I did see some buggies, like kind of going up the hill to help people out. But going down therefore was very tricky. So it was like 80 meters up, like 40 meters across, and then 80 meters back down. But it was harder than I was expecting. And yeah, to be honest though, I do think I could train for this a lot better because I hadn't really done enough of this. I'd sort of been doing a lot more in like the sled pulls in the gym, but actually it was nothing like that. And so maybe I mistrained there. It was my first time, so I was kind of winging it a little bit. But yeah, I didn't really feel as prepared as maybe I should have done. 11 was a bit different, but kind of similar. So I heard people talking, and I was also talking to people literally during the race. There is an element of socialness about it. Because the thing is the weight in point 11, I think it was 18 kilograms, so less heavy, but it was a hard plastic bucket with loose stones inside, so it moved around and it was super awkward to put across your back. Like you could, but you had to use a lot of forearm strength to keep it there, or which was mostly my approach, was to like use fingers to kind of hold the rim, and I was sort of like this, so more of like tricep, I suppose. And that's mostly what I did, as well as sort of swapping it between my shoulder blades. But this was like, you can kind of see it on the map here, looks like 2 circles. So it was up and down and then up and down again. And again, like very steep, just slightly less steep than the sandbag, but still tricky. And yeah, people were arguing about which event was worse. Like the sandbag was heavier but easier to carry and only one hill versus the bucket. I thought the bucket was tougher because it just like your body's sort of like, okay, I'm going downhill now, phew. And then there's another one as well. So I mean, I saw like one guy that was completely sprawled out on the floor. I'm assuming he probably got rescued. He was done. And yeah, there was a few people that just really were done. I mean, I couldn't really see any way that they were going to get back up. So yeah, so I had my second and third, and that was my final breaks on the top of both of those hills, and just like sit down for a minute, literally on top of the bucket. So I had a seat this time, and just was like, okay, right, I've just climbed the hill. It's going to get easier from here. Sort of just kept on persevering. But yeah, tougher. Obstacles 12 to 14 were basically a bunch of rope exercises. 13 was a quite easy, I would say, actually, and it was like a net crawl, but this time it was like soft grass. You just had to go down very low. The net was fine. on a slightly awkward, maybe angled ground, but no problem at all. 12, I skipped. That was the rope climb. I hadn't done any preparation for it. And again, my arms, although they're feeling a little bit better by this stage, because most of the obstacles before it have now been on my shoulders. So my forearms are actually kind of feeling okay. But again, I'm sort of still feeling pretty worn out by this stage. So I didn't attempt the rope and just was like, "Do you know what? Like, I haven't got either the technique or I'm strong enough to do this." So I just took the penalty, which was another log walk. So I just did that. Obstacle 14 was probably the obstacle I'm most proud of. Not only did I beat my friend in it, who said he really struggled, but it was basically a pulley, so very heavy weight. I mean, I had to really like jump in the air and jump onto the ground to even just move it a little bit, and I'm 100 kilograms, right? So it was really heavy. But I got my technique really good, so I managed to get this up in about 20 seconds, probably about, I don't know, 25 meters into the air. So what's that, 70 feet? It was very high into the air, very heavy, but I managed to get a really good sort of rhythm going where I was using my weight. And again, this is where like I've got an extra over 12 kilograms on my friend. So this was one of those events where actually having that extra was quite useful. So yeah, so I used my weight, but I used my arm strength as well as my weight, and just felt like I really nailed this one. So I was most pleased, I think, with the pulley was good. I felt really pleased afterwards. Although afterwards my hands were like shaking, as were my forearms, but during the moment I just felt like I was really nailing it. And yeah, pleased, super pleased. Just have no. This was when I was like, and by this point as well, I could start to see. So this is, you're on like 14, so you can kind of see the end point. You're like up a hill, so you can see the end. So there's a like when I got this and then sort of was like feeling really motivated now. It didn't really dawn on me when I pulled it, but then you turn a corner and I could see it and I was like, oh great, the end's in sight. Like so I kind of knew roughly where I was. So I felt really good. I got like a massive surge of adrenaline and excitement. And then we had obstacles 15 and 16. So obstacle 15 was like a sideways wall, which I'd done a little bit of bouldering actually with my friend who does a ton of bouldering. And so I felt pretty good about this in theory, but it was a really tricky wall because like there was no grips. They were basically like very narrow, smooth bits of wood. So you're having to use a lot of finger strength and a lot of like sticking to the wall. So my knees were got like proper bashed around. And yeah, I think a lot of people found this quite difficult. It was way harder than you were expecting. It was just like a sideways walk, but it was about 20 meters long in three distinct phases, and each phase was like an awkward transition into the next part of it. So yeah, this was really hard. I thought like I'd done a reasonable amount of preparing here, but I was very much expecting like a friendlier rock wall, and this was like bits of wood with no grips at all. So that was tricky. And then 16 was the one that I was like my wife was and daughter were there as well, and they like had a little walk up to obstacle 16, just because they're waiting for me and were just curious what was up there. And they were surprised because honestly, like a third of people were falling off. So it was just a balance beam, but it was quite narrow. It was quite steep to get onto the balance beam from like a ramp, which was also incredibly narrow. You're talking like 6 centimeter width. So really narrow. And I mean, I had to go up really slowly on all fours, and then literally across the beam. I mean, I was crawling because I didn't want to have to do it again, and it was quite high off the ground as well. It was like over 4 foot off the ground, quite high. I don't know. But like I don't know what it was. Like in isolation, this obstacle should have been quite straightforward. But I think like you were tired, like muscles are aching, like the brain is fogged. Like so many people were struggling on it that and like yeah, you like if you fell off before like a certain point, you have to go and start again. So I was like, right, I just took a really slow approach. But honestly, it must have taken me about 2 minutes to get across this obstacle. So both of these felt weirdly difficult in terms of the grand scheme of things. And honestly, I think it was just because we were tired. Like again, in isolation, no problem, but they were both challenging in their own way. Then we got 17 and 18. I was super pleased with both of my approaches here. They were both basically slanty walls. So old school 17 was you had to go up to a wall that was maybe like I don't know 30 degrees backwards, and there were like four beams that you climbed up, and then the final one to get over the top was really quite hard. You had to really sort of throw yourself over. But that I did on the third attempt. But I was sort of up on the wall the whole time. I was just like, and then finally, I managed to get my body angled enough to go there. But that was quite surprisingly tricky. Also, as well, I would say like you can sort of see it on the elevation there, like at the 4.5K. The like between 16 and 17, like that the hills went up much more than you were expecting. So you're like running along and like along the tree line, and you are like by this time I'm trying to get back into like a proper run because this event's called a sprint, right? But there wasn't much sprinting. So I'm like trying to at least do a little bit of a jog up a hill again. I'm thinking to myself, maybe I can make up a bit of time here. But that was surprisingly steep. And then similarly as well, going down the hill to obstacle 17, really steep. I was again, I think you can kind of see it on this is like the steepest part of the race. So that was quite surprising. Like my legs were definitely feeling that. But yeah, then 18 I was quite pleased with. So that was again a fairly steep wall with ropes, so you just had to pull yourself up. But I felt like my arm strength at this point was really starting to recover, and I was feeling quite good, and the adrenaline was going. I must say as well, when I got over the first inverted wall, so obstacle 7, where I threw myself over, it was then like a 5 foot or so drop down on the other side before you got to the first ledge. And when I like got down, I was just like so pleased. I was like, I let out like a really pleased with myself. Like there was so much aggression to sort of force myself over this wall. And then yeah, 18, I sort of had no problem with that actually. I found it relatively straightforward, just a bit of strength. And then the spear throw, which was event I was kind of looking forward to. I hadn't done any training to it, but there was such a huge queue here that I just decided to take the punishment because I didn't want it to sort of affect my time even worse. Like I'd already got held up in a couple of places earlier in the race, so I looked at it and I was like, well, even if I queue here, there's a good chance I'm going to fail this anyway. Um, Let me just take the punishment. And the punishment was like 25 burpees, which is super tough at the best of times, but after a long race. So the burpees were not enjoyable at all and took me, I don't know, a couple of minutes anyway to get through 25 burpees. They were really arduous and tough. But just to, yeah, for full disclosure, I didn't do the spear throw, which I'm a little bit disappointed with, but I was mostly focused on doing it. And honestly, here I thought the punishment was quite harsh, considering a spear throw is, relatively not physically demanding. It's just like technique. But yeah, here I felt like the punishment was really tough, but that might just be because I was feeling it a little bit. And then 20 was a large A-frame. It was a very tall A-frame, like 50 feet tall. But it was also quite straightforward. I've climbed enough ropes at this time. I took my time just to make sure I didn't fall off. I was also actually right on the left, so I could have legitimately fallen off. So I did take my time a little bit, but I was just very focused. Also, as well, my wife and daughter, to like hear my daughter like, go on, daddy, go on. She was very excited, so that was quite nice. So I just sort of powered through, had no problem at the top, and just got back down. No issues there. And then obstacle 21 wasn't really an obstacle. It was just kind of like you jump over an open flame, which is kind of fun. I must admit, like in the moment, I really felt like I like gave it my all, and I gave like the really big sprint and a really epic jump. And then my wife showed me it on video, like she'd caught this, and I just looked like I was going like snail's pace. I don't know, like it was a really big cognitive wake up call as to I obviously wasn't. I just felt like I had to. I probably did exert myself in the moment, but it was funny like looking back at it. So this was the race, quite a long walkthrough, honestly. But then I wanted to do that and sort of this has been very cathartic for me so far. But let's talk about how we actually did now and what the next events are. All right, so as I touched on, this was the easiest of the three difficulties. It certainly didn't feel that way. And again, sprint is an interesting word here because, at least for most of us, including myself, there wasn't much sprinting. But 5 kilometers and 20 obstacles. Technically 21, but I think we can not count the fire jump. And again, to me, according to the data I got from my friend, longer than 5K. Then we got the super, which is 10K and 26 obstacles. And then we have the Beast 21K and 32 obstacles. I noticed as well when I was looking at these that, like the longer distances have a higher percentage of running. Like if you compare Sprint and Beast, it's 4 times the distance, but only sort of 60% more obstacles. So kind of interesting the approach there. I would like to do another sprint in October 25 to be a bit more competitive and improve on my time, which we'll definitely touch on in just a second. Then I'd like to do the Super in May and then become more competitive. I do think, in fairness, I could probably manage the Super in October. My friend is going to be doing that, and then he's going to be doing the Beast in next May. But I mean, he's so much fitter than me already, and I just don't feel ready to offer anything other than like crawling over the line. And I get why there's an element of pride in terms of just finishing one of these things, frankly, especially at the higher distance. But for me, I'd like to, now that I've finished it, I kind of want to do a run that I'm sort of really happy with. So I'm going to focus on that in October and then a similar thing with the Super next year. However, I will commit here to doing the Beast in May 2027. Interestingly, that'll also be my 40th birthday. My birthday's in May. So I think it'll be a really nice way as like a 40-year-old to welcome in that decade being able to run a pretty tough race. That sort of bodes well for the sort of betterment and fitness part of my channel. And indeed my aspirations in life just to live, a little bit of a healthy, happy life. So yeah, so that'll be a nice way to welcome in that decade. Before I started, I had 3 targets for this race. Complete the race, I know that's a lame target for many people, but honestly, it was tough, and I haven't done anything like this ever. I've only been training since like the middle of January. I've only been eating well since October. Since October, I've actually lost like 9 kilograms or 8.5 kilograms. So I mean, even that like is a significant improvement just to try and get ready for this and frankly be able to finish it. Then I wanted to do the race in under 90 minutes. The reason why I chose this time is because I was reading up in advance, and the average in these races is typically 135 to 138. So I thought to myself, well, I feel like I should be able to do it in under 90. Actually, I went into this with a little bit of complacency, I suppose, when I saw the average time because you think to yourself like 5K, like it's only 3.5 miles. Like I'm not that unfit. Like you can force yourself surely to do that. Like a mile every 20 minutes, that should be quite straightforward, right? But as we'll see, like this is a pretty reasonable reflection of an average race. But that was my target at least beforehand. And then it was to beat the average time. Now, I didn't actually get a formal average time on the Spartan email that they sent me, but I was speaking to some of the people afterwards when about 80% of the races had completed, and they were telling me at the time that the average time was 1 hour 38. However, when I got it, so how did I do? So when I got this data, this is taken straight from a Spartan for me personally on my race number. So my time 132, so sort of below the average, but obviously then when you look at the percentile, it's 58%. So I'm slower than the median person at least. But then I realized that both of these things could be true where like you've got a lot of slower people in the sort of rest of the percentile, or probably a fairly long tail of people who are taking maybe 4 or 5 hours. So maybe actually that brings down the average time a little bit. In the same way, to be fair, that the 10% of people who zoomed off at the beginning who had done the beast in the morning probably flatter the average time as well. So maybe there's an element here of maths doing its thing. Um, and if I'm honest, if I'd have seen this before I'd done the race, right, if I'd have got a glimpse of the future, I probably would have been a little bit disappointed, like seeing these numbers. But actually, having been through the race, I'm really pleased. Like as I mentioned previously, when I was lining up in the paddock and it dawned on me that I was in the bottom 20% of fitness levels quite comfortably, um, I realized this was a little bit tougher than I was expecting. Similarly, as well, although there were parts of it that I found easier than expected, like the cardio, the running in general, uphill even, and some of the obstacles, parts of it were just absolutely tough, like way harder than I was expecting, and really sort of like yeah, just tougher. Like there were definitely elements of this race where I was a bit complacent. So overall, I'm still really happy with this. Obviously, there's room for improvement. The nudge from there, you can go faster. So I suppose from that perspective, that is going to be my aim. I don't know really like it's going to be a different location and a different race. So to be honest with you, I think the percentile is going to be more important. But I'm also not really sure. As long as they're somewhat similar, I'd like to be able to think I can take, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes off my time if I just take fewer breaks, I'm a bit more polished on some of the obstacles, get a bit more speed and consistency. But it does very much depend on sort of the elevation here was much tougher than I was expecting. The ground also was quite uneven in places. Like you literally, I don't think you could have gone fast in some of the places without risking injury. So yeah, so that was pretty interesting. I was also relatively surprised actually at my age level, like 113 out of 165. Not sure how I feel about that, but it was interesting here with the breakdown. So I think like these percentiles are solid, without being amazing, and there's clearly room for improvement. But overall, like actually, my initial reaction was like, I'm going to be disappointed with this. Like, am I disappointed? But honestly, overall, I'm pleased to have done it in the first place. And yeah, just happy with this, even though I accept that there's things to build on, and I arguably only met one of my targets here. Definitely didn't beat the average time. Sorry, definitely didn't beat the average person. Potentially beat the average time, and objectively speaking, didn't do it in under 90 minutes. So that's going to be areas where I want to improve it. Anyway, I'm going to round out this video with some pictures and some final thoughts. All right, so here are my pictures here from left to right. The first one here is before the race. I've redacted out my daughter, but she was with me at the time. We don't do the social media with my daughter. And this was me sort of feeling nervous, I think I would describe myself. Like there was a nervous energy, but I'd already noticed that there were not many people that were bigger than me. And there were some people who were very much in incredible shape. And so I was a bit nervous at this point. So this is definitely like fake confidence. Um, And yeah, even just getting into the paddock, you had to like jump over a 4 foot wall. So that was sort of a bit of like, oh, okay, we're gonna get started now. The start was actually really fun. Like the theme for this video, like I am a Spartan, was there was like a couple of guys that were dressed up as Spartans in great shape, but there was a one guy who was sort of in charge of the mic, and he was really getting everyone going, and you have to like repeat like I am a Spartan, and it was kind of fun, and that element of it was really enjoyable. There was a few people, I mean, many people, I would say, doing their first race. So, I would say maybe 20 to 30% of the group was doing their first race. So he sort of hands up for the first race. So I put mine up, and that kind of stuff. The youngest person in the race was actually, or in our paddock, was 19. So he was the person that was charged with sort of being, helping rally the spirits. Um, and yeah, no idea how he done, but that's quite impressive that he's doing this already at 19. Maybe it's easier though at 19, right? You're fitter and younger. But at the same time, like when I was 19, I wouldn't have got out of bed because I would have been recovering from the night before. So I think it's impressive what these kids can do. The second picture is probably the depths of. So this is straight after. I'm literally just after getting my medal. I must admit, I was weirdly emotional. Like I'm not really an emotional man, and like my wife was like taking pictures, and I was like, pretending to just queue up for something else, just so I didn't have to like look at her or sort of just give myself a minute or two to compose myself. You can kind of see it in the second picture. I definitely was like, oh my goodness, that was tough. Like I had like cuts across my calves, especially from the walls. I was bruised in places like, I mean, I've got bruises across my abs even today. And on my like forearms and legs, like everything still feels beaten up 3 days later. Although now it's starting to feel like more like surface level, whereas on Sunday and indeed Saturday after the race, I mean, I was like a proper zombie. It was really, really tough. Did make me feel better that my friend was also a proper zombie. Oh, and by the way, he did it in 52 minutes. I forgot to say. So yeah, did absolutely destroy me. Then the third picture there is after I've regained a little bit of composure. I think here I was talking about how sore my hands were from the actually the pulley on the rope. They still felt really beaten up, although today they feel absolutely fine. But that was where I was sort of like really taking relief from it and starting to feel good. And then the last picture there is on the train back to Paddington, where I'm just sort of like feeling, I mean, honestly, very tired. I tried to sleep on the train. Like physically, I felt exhausted, but mentally, I was wide awake. So I did not manage to sleep until late evening. But it was super fun. Also as well, my daughter especially was really sweet. She was like making me wear the medal the whole way. So yeah, so that's nice. It was actually very rewarding to have. My daughter literally said to me, like, "Hey, I'm so proud of you." I was, "Oh my goodness!" Like no wonder I was like feeling a little bit emotional. But yeah, so overall, like I say, there are areas of this where I feel like disappointed, but the disappointment is very much surface level. Like I did it. I trained for months to do this, right? Like I've actively been trying to improve my health as I approach 40. I've really sort of been committed to the gym, going like 3 times every week. Um, trying to improve myself further. There's elements of my gym and indeed diet that still need some work. I would say like I'm really into my push day of the gym. I love that, and I'm also quite into my leg day. But cardio still actually I haven't really started to enjoy cardio, although I think I'm okay at it. And also the pull days, I'm not really enjoying that just yet. I need to get better at some of the exercises or find things that really work for me. Um, and similarly as well with the food, although I've managed to cut out a lot of the sort of chocolates and crisps, I still have quite big portions, and I'm not very good at sort of not eating. I get hungry all the time, so I still like my weight to be a little bit lower, and I think I could definitely improve on both of those fronts, so that when I do the next one in October, that I'm lighter, fitter, stronger at the end of the day, so more Spartan like and improve on the time. But like any disappointment I have is honestly quite fleeting. And actually having been through it and sort of felt how hard it was, like it's incredibly rewarding. Like reflecting on it, like I feel a better person for doing it. I don't mean to sound like smug, like that sounds really smug. And I know, like in fairness, like for many people, like this is only a 5K run, it's only a single day. It's not that impressive, objectively speaking, right? Like people do ultra marathons or swim the channel and things like that, right? But like for me, like as a somewhat unfit man in my late 30s, with a career and a family and other commitments as well, it's like actually I did this, right? It took me months of training. I took it quite seriously. I did it. And also as well, like during the way around, like my mental resilience was like amazing. Like I don't mean to, again, I don't mean to sound like brag or smug or anything, but like not once did I think like, why am I doing this? I want to quit. Like I want to go home. Like it was exhausting, sure, but like I was like, I'm here to do it. Like, and that's what I'm gonna do. Like there was never any doubt in my head, like not even a little bit, that like when I sat down to rest, that I wouldn't be getting back up again. Like I was finishing that race. So yeah, even though like I walked more than I was expecting. I found it harder than I was expecting. I didn't do as well as I was expecting, but like I still did it, and like I never felt bad for doing it, especially in the moment. And again, I think that's like I'm really pleased about that. Like I think up until this point of my life, or certainly until a few years ago, things either came very naturally to me and I was good at them, or they didn't come naturally to me and I just didn't bother to do them, right? And that's okay, I suppose. But there are better ways to live and kind of like push yourself and challenge yourself. And yeah, so even though I think, objectively speaking, it's not a huge distance, it's only a 90-minute event, right? People do more impressive things. I don't, or I haven't recently. So I still feel like if I'm like competing against myself, which I think like these kind of events really are, that's how you start things, right? And then the community comes in later, or like the benchmarking comes in later. The first event has to be like, I need to prove something to myself, or I need to just push myself and be a little bit better. And that's where I sort of feel quite proud, frankly. Looking back at this, like there'll be some memories here and some like core memories. Actually for my daughter as well, who wants to do the kids one in October, so that could be interesting. But it was super fun. It was a good family day out. It was very tiring. I would thoroughly recommend it. And like I say, if anyone would like to get in touch and run the sprint or indeed the other ones, uh, in Sussex. The website's very navigatable, so I will be signing up to that, and we'll go from there. So yeah, I will absolutely buy anyone a pint or a cold drink who comes to the Sussex one in October. But for now, that's everything. Honestly, this video is meant to be like 15 minutes max, and it's over double that. So it looks like I'm not very good at keeping to my time objectives in life. But I honestly, I think I just needed to like digest and talk about it. So thank you very much. Honestly, if you made it to the end of this video, that's amazing. I've been the Boss Hog, and good luck with your, I guess, your life and your journey, and your hopefully some betterment. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye for now.